Hello everyone, my name is Sander Kokart and welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm feeling fantastic. Although I have to reshoot this video an awful lot of times because I keep getting blue screens of death due to a terrible overclock. Or, sorry, undervolt. I keep messing those two up. Anyhow, I want to talk about ThrottleStop because my previous video had a lot of misinformation, there was a lot of missed information. There were things that I didn't know about, but thanks to you guys in the comment section, I do know now. And yeah, I wanted to recap on that, give a little bit more of a better tutorial than the previous one was. It mostly applied to my laptop, didn't really apply to you guys. So that's why we're gonna be making this remake and tackle over the things all over again. So see this as another guide version number 2. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, you want to download ThrottleStop. You can do that from their website. You can just Google this or on whatever other browser you're using. Download ThrottleStop, usually the top spot. Download and select it from the region that you're from. Once it is downloaded, you can install it. Once it is installed, you can launch it. And when it is launched, this will show up on your screen. Now, in here, you have 4 presets: performance, game, internet, and battery, of which you can change the names in options. So you can change the names if you want to. Then there is another setting that you can do is minimize on close and start minimized. That is something that I personally turn on because when this application does launch, every time I start Windows, which by the way you have to set manually, but we'll cover that at the end of the video. Once you've done that, you will get this basically in the face every single time you boot up. Well, that's something I don't like, so I make it start minimized, and whenever you close it, it's gonna just sit in the tray of Windows instead of it completely closing the application. So it also disappears from the taskbar. So that is something that I do. You can also set the profile to use when it detects that it's on power. So when it detects that that it's being plugged in, or when it detects that it's going on battery, it can swap between profiles. So my battery profile is 4, which is battery, and AC profile is 2, which is game, which will basically increase my performance to the maximum of what it is capable of. So that is the options. Then there is a multitude of settings that you can mess around with. Clock modulation basically reduces your maximum base clock. So your maximum base clock, in my case, would be something along the lines of 3.2 or 3. And what would happen when I would set it to 50% is it would go all the way down to 1.5 instead, and that will become the maximum clock speed it can achieve. It is a rather safe method. It does work on pretty much all laptops. It can't go over 100%. You can only lower it. And when you do lower it, it's just going to cap the maximum performance off. You can easily go all the way down to 12.5%, which is going to severely slow down your system if you have a lot of things running at that time. But if you're not, then it's just going to slow down the maximum clock speed the laptop can achieve, all the way down to less than a gigahertz. So if you want to mess around with that, be my guest. Then there is set multiplier. I would only suggest moving this thing if you have an unlocked processor. Then you can pretty much easily touch it. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it. And then there is a speed shift. Speed shift being the newer technology of Intel to reduce or increase speed based on temperatures or based on a variable number. It is somewhat tied in with the temperature, but that was more of the case with Intel's older technology, which was speed step. So that's the alternative here at the bottom. If you have an older CPU, speed step can be used instead of speed shift. On modern processors, 4th generation and up, you have speed shift, and that is actually a much better method of dealing with it. It takes a number from 0 to 255. Or actually 1 to 255, and you can change the numbers as well if you want to. A way you can do this is go to TPL, or turbo power limits, and when you press on this button you can see the speed shift checkbox that you need to check. You also can see enable speed shift when ThrottleStop starts. You want to enable those, and then there's the minimal number and the maximum number. 0 basically turning it off, and minimum 0 or 1 being the highest performance, and 255 being the lowest performance. So the higher the number, the less of performance you will have, and the less power draw in general you're gonna have. So here I am on my battery profile, and the turbo is disabled, and the speed shift is set to 128, and you can see the voltages that are being drawn. It's somewhere around the 0.5, 0.6 to 0.8 sometimes. I can also force that all the way down by going to 255. and that will slow down the processor dramatically. And now you can see it sticks pretty much to 5, although now it goes up for 7.6 again. I think that is because it requires it for OBS to run, but it should reduce performance quite significantly if you do set it to 255. For battery, I'm just gonna keep it at 128 because I don't want to slow down my system that much. I mean, the thing that you can probably see most differences is, for example, opening up Windows Explorer or Windows key E. If you press that and you open up Explorer and you set it to 0, you'll see that it's much faster than when you were to set it to 255. It would actually take a substantial amount of time. So here, let's set it to 255, save, and let's open up Explorer. That takes quite a long time. You see that? You see how that takes quite a long time? Now let's go to performance, or game actually, which is set to 0, and let's see what happens. Much faster. Much faster. Let's set it to 1 just to be safe that it is within the speed shift range. I mean, that's still fast. But compared to 255, I mean, that's just slow. So that is what speed shift does in a general sense. It is very, very useful. It basically reduces the amount of voltage that the processor can draw, and it is the main way to do a little bit of power limiting. Then there is, well, disable turbo. Like I said, you can disable the turbo. It is a short burst of speed that usually happens when you're launching applications. Then for that 10-second period, it will up the core voltage, it will up the speed, and that will allow the processor to have a short burst of speed that you will notice because it is a short burst of a lot more speed, and it is used for mostly application launching. And when the application is launched, it will slow down back to its base clock again. Turbo boost, if you want to disable it, you can. It will prevent those spikes in thermal performance and performance in general. It will prevent that from happening. So you can disable the turbo if you have a Core i5 or up processor, as the i3 doesn't have a turbo. Then there is FIVR, and this is the button that you want to be pressing. If it doesn't show up, I'm sorry, you just have a processor that is not from the 4th generation or up. Only on the 4th generation or up, you can go and actually press this button, and only then it exists. If it doesn't show up, it means you have a too old processor, or it is a Pentium or Celeron that doesn't support it. I cannot vouch for the newer Celerons and Pentiums because I have never launched ThrottleStop on such of a laptop. So I can't say if those also support FIVR, but on the Core series, it definitely does. So when you click on it, you have 3 things that you want to pay attention to: the CPU core, the Intel GPU, and the CPU cache. For some reason, CPU cache needs to be the higher number compared to CPU core, because otherwise somehow it seems to not be linked and it doesn't listen. I don't know why. Just take my word for it that it doesn't work. I don't know why. It just doesn't. So by making the cache, like for me, around 80.1 on the offset, so 80.1 lower voltage than usual, or millivolts, you could say. When I do that, that is going to be the base, let's say. And then on the CPU cache, I mean, that's the same thing. So when they're linked, it should work. If you were to by itself, so without moving the cache, so making cache set at 0 again, if you then were to adjust your V core voltage and go all the way to 125, you'd probably register that nothing is happening. So, but I'm tired of testing that. I have had multiple blue screens of death. I don't know why. I just know that it wasn't a stable configuration. So my current configuration seems to be somewhat stable, which is 80.1. That is the undervolt that I've put on the CPU cache and the CPU core. You want to start at 0 and just gradually move that up in increments of 10 until your processor starts to shut down irregularly. And when it does shut down, it means that it can't actually it doesn't have enough power to run the processor, and so you need to up the voltage again. So for me, a minus 80 seems to be a good spot, although sometimes I had to lower it to minus 70 in the past. Maybe now it runs a little smoother on minus 80. I haven't had a blue screen of death on this yet, but I have on 90. So It's right now at 80.1. That is my undervolt that I've applied. So how do you do that actually? Well, you go to unlock adjustable voltage, you check that box, you put it to adaptive, and you lower the offset voltage to minus 80% or whatever percentage suits for you as you're gradually trying out new voltages. And the CPU cache and CPU core have to be linked or it's not going to listen. I don't know why. Don't ask me. Ask the developers of ThrottleStop or Tech PowerUp. I do not know why it won't work. I don't know why it just doesn't otherwise apply. And then the Intel GPU, I've set it to minus 50 millivolts. Just basically followed off of a guide, but minus 50 millivolts, just reduce the power consumption of the GPU slightly. If I were to set this all the way to 0, well, 9 times out of 10, nothing's gonna happen. Oh, hold on a second. Let's go to Intel GPU, minus 125, apply. Nothing really happens. I don't know, maybe it doesn't apply because it's too high of a number, maybe it doesn't apply because it just doesn't apply. Like I can even go all the way down to minus 1000 and it wouldn't change a fair thing. I don't know why. All I know is that people just recommend minus 50 and you should keep it at that. And hopefully it uses it, hopefully, I don't know, I will never find out. Then, other than that, you don't want to touch anything really. This is basically what you want to do. You want to set the offset voltage of the cache, go with the cache as low as you possibly can, match the V-core to it, and you should be fine. Run some stress tests. There is one built into ThrottleStop here. It's called TS Bench here at the bottom. You can start that and it will basically throttle yours or push your CPU to the maximum and make sure that it runs for like that for a good amount of time. See if it's stable. If it is stable, congratulations, set it as an undervolt. And otherwise, try again at another voltage. If you do get a blue screen of death, you're not going to break anything by having a lower voltage. You are going to break a couple things when having a higher voltage. So don't be afraid. But just be sure that you put it in the minus section, not in the plus section, minus or a plus 80. Let's do minus 80. So anyhow, that is how I've set up my way around ThrottleStop. Now, in order to make sure that ThrottleStop starts up on its own all the time, we have to use Windows Task Scheduler. So we're gonna go to Task Scheduler, and let's go to the Task Scheduler library, and we're just gonna create a new basic task. We'll create a basic task. We're gonna call this ThrottleStop. And we're gonna go to next and trigger when I log on. So when you log into Windows, you don't want to set it to when it starts up in Windows, because before that is a login screen, and well, we don't want that. We want it to always launch. So when you log on, that's when we want it to happen. We want to start a program, and we want to run the program that I've installed. So let's go to C drive, where I've put it under the name Throttle, and there's the application. It doesn't take any arguments. Finish, and there you go. So now, whenever I log on, ThrottleStop should start off together with Windows. And that's basically all that there is to it. This should lower your temperatures quite significantly. Right now, mine are pretty high, simply because, well, I'm recording as I'm going along. But it will reduce temperatures quite significantly, reduce power draw, and hopefully this has summed up a lot of your questions and answered a lot of them. If there are any further ones, or you don't know what to do something, hit me up on Discord, where I'm happy to talk with you about it and see if we can fix it. If not, then I'm sorry, but I want to make a good effort and see for you guys if we can get it to work. So, without further ado, that has been my recap on ThrottleStop. Hopefully I've provided enough information this time. Other than that, you also have to make sure that it's turned on. So here, now it's turned off. You want to turn on ThrottleStop, or nothing of these things are gonna apply. And other than that, that's pretty much it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned something. I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Peace.